In the age of glass towers that reached beyond clouds of vaporized silver and cities that floated serenely above alien seas, the Elendari believed they had perfected civilization itself. 10,000 years of peace had dulled their instincts, and their songs celebrated how they had risen from chaos to command the stars. They called their empire the Continuum, a realm so vast that light itself needed centuries to cross it. In that serenity, they forgot the meaning of danger. They had archives for every recorded event, every vanished species, every conquered world, except one name buried behind sealed encryption keys: humanity. The elders spoke of them only in private, whispering that the oldest generation once trembled when the word was uttered. To most, the myth was an exaggeration, a tale invented by historians to glorify the Continuum's triumph. No one truly believed a single species could once make entire galaxies tremble. Their culture had turned history into ceremony. Children were taught that progress was eternal and peace inevitable. Art repeated itself endlessly, and science had become philosophy rather than discovery. When you have everything, curiosity dies quietly, and only arrogance remains. Still, within the Department of Cosmic Preservation, forbidden sections existed, vaults where ancient files were kept under layers of cryptographic seals. Those who guarded them were called the archivists of the Silent Dawn, and their duty was to ensure the myths never escaped into common speech. They told themselves they were preventing panic, though few knew what panic truly was anymore. From the observation citadel orbiting the crimson gas giant Seraph, a team of signal analysts monitored background radiation from the Pashorn Rim. Their work was routine, pattern recognition, frequency calibration, nothing worthy of news. But one evening, as twin moons cast mirrored shadows across Serapha's bands, the instruments captured something unfamiliar, a rhythm buried beneath cosmic noise, a faint pulse repeating every 61 seconds. It was not random. It was deliberate. The analysts submitted their findings to the Central Data Exchange, expecting little more than a bureaucratic dismissal. The report returned marked artifact noise. Disregard. Rumors traveled faster than light. Within cycles, whispers spread through data forums and social channels. The pulse resembled the resonance signatures of pre-extinction communication systems, ancient technologies attributed to the species once labeled Terran. The name resurfaced, and with it came discomfort that no one could quite explain. Official channels flooded the network with explanations about natural pulsars, but their overreaction betrayed the fear they tried to hide. In quiet dwellings and academic halls, historians reopened forbidden texts. They found descriptions of creatures who thrived in chaos, who learned faster than machines, who transformed war into art and survival into destiny. The documents described them as fragile, emotional, short-lived, and unstoppable. Across the capital world of Kaidura, the High Council met in silent chambers. The first speaker reminded them of the Covenant of Oblivion, a decree that forbade speaking the Terran name aloud. Yet even he could not hide the tremor in his voice. For 10 millennia, the Continuum had ruled uncontested, and now a relic from the forgotten age had stirred. It was nothing more than a signal, they told themselves, a ghost from the void. But those who studied history knew better. Ghosts did not leave patterns. They left warnings. In the lower levels of the Council's archive complex, an ancient AI core lay dormant. It was said to be the last machine built before the Extinction Wars. Its creators had named it Archivist Zero, and only a few dared approach it. That night, an unsanctioned technician fed the anomalous pulse into the machine's decaying interface. The AI awoke for the first time in thousands of years. Its lights flickered like dying stars before stabilizing. It processed the signal, translated its base structure, and generated one line of text. The technician read it once, twice, then froze. The line was simple, written in an extinct human tongue, but the translation was unmistakable: "We remember." By dawn, security agents found the technician dead from shock, his neural link fried. The AI's power core had been deliberately severed, and all records of the incident erased. Official reports blamed system failure, but whispers in the Citadel spread faster than suppression protocols could contain them. Across the Continuum, Dreams of endless peace began to fracture under the weight of unease. The idea that something ancient might be returning, something that remembered, seeded fear more efficiently than any war. The great civilizations of the galaxy had long believed themselves architects of eternity. They had erased every threat, rewritten every record, polished history until only perfection remained. But perfection is brittle. Beneath it, the pulse still beat, faint yet persistent, echoing through the void like a heartbeat waiting to be answered. The continuum would not acknowledge it, but somewhere in the darkness between stars, the past was stirring, and the myth of humanity was no longer content to sleep. The Elendari called it noise. Their ancestors would have called it a warning. The artifact hung in orbit above a dead star, silent and ageless, its metal skin untouched by time or decay. The research vessel that found it believed it to be a derelict mining rig or perhaps a relic of some extinct species. But as its scanners probed deeper, the ship's crew realized that the object wasn't transmitting power. It was containing it, holding an energy signature that matched no known spectrum. Its architecture was brutal in design, built for endurance rather than beauty. Markings etched across its surface bore no resemblance to the delicate glyphs of modern species. They were sharp, angular, carved with purpose. When the scientists aligned the symbols, a word began to emerge, one that the system's linguistic database flagged as forbidden, Terran. The discovery was sent quietly to the Continuum's central archives, tagged for restricted analysis. Yet the moment it entered the data streams, something unexpected happened. Dormant algorithms, written in forgotten coding languages, began to activate throughout the network. Files long thought corrupted reassembled themselves. Ancient texts, battle recordings, and genetic archives blinked into existence. A cascade of recovered information flooded the system, overwhelming every firewall. Within hours, historians had enough evidence to prove the unthinkable. The Continuum had not destroyed humanity. Humanity had vanished of its own will. The records painted a story alien minds struggled to comprehend. Millennia ago, when the galaxy was ablaze with endless wars, humans had not been the strongest, nor the most numerous. They were simply the most relentless. Every time another civilization tried to erase them, they adapted, absorbing technologies, bending them, reshaping them until their enemies became their teachers. They waged wars not for conquest, but for survival, and in that struggle, they grew to master chaos itself. Then, suddenly, they were gone. No trace, no ruin, no corpses, just silence. It was as if they had decided that the galaxy was no longer worth their attention. Among scholars, the revelation ignited fascination. Could they have ascended beyond flesh, beyond the material universe itself? Some proposed that humanity had reached a stage of technological singularity so complete they had folded themselves into energy, leaving the galaxy to lesser species. Others suggested something darker, that they had seen the inevitable decay of civilization and chosen exile to let time reset the balance. Philosophers found poetry in the idea. Scientists found terror. Because if humans had left by choice, that meant they could also choose to return. The High Council acted with predictable fear. The research team was placed under surveillance, their findings sealed under the Decree of Existential Threat Protocol. Public acknowledgement of the discovery was forbidden. The official explanation labeled the artifact an unstable pre-continuum satellite, irrelevant to current civilization. But suppression only fed curiosity. Data leaks began spreading across outer systems. Partial images, fragmented translations, encrypted sound files that carried voices speaking in tones no one had heard for 10,000 years. Those who listened said the words carried emotion unlike anything the Elendari tongue could replicate. It felt human. Soon the leaks reached the public. Debate erupted across the networks. Some called the findings fabrications, others declared them prophecy. On frontier worlds, cults emerged, preaching that the returners would soon reclaim the stars. Merchants sold icons shaped after the old Terran symbol of the spiral galaxy. Governments scrambled to contain the hysteria, but truth travels faster than decree. For the first time in an age, the Continuum citizens felt something raw and ungovernable. fear mixed with awe. In the hidden archives of Kaidura, one scholar broke the final encryption protecting the deepest file in the Terran records. Inside was a message transmitted during the final days of humanity's reign. The recording was degraded, the voice rough and distorted, yet unmistakably human. "We leave not in defeat," it said. "We leave to remember what you cannot. When you forget what made you tremble, we will return." The scholar deleted the file immediately, but the sound of that voice haunted him. He reported it to no one, though he could not shake the sense that the words were not history, they were instruction. Across the continuum, subtle patterns began to appear in data streams, faint distortions echoing the same frequency as the artifact's pulse. The energy readings matched human technology from the ancient wars, devices that had once manipulated gravity itself. Analysts ran simulations to locate the source but found the signal emanated from multiple points simultaneously, as if space itself carried memory. The realization spread quietly among the scientific elite. The humans had not disappeared into nothing. They had embedded traces of themselves in the very fabric of reality. Panic grew beneath the surface of civilization like pressure beneath a calm sea. Politicians swore control. Scientists whispered prophecies. And ordinary beings looked up at the stars with the uneasy awareness that history might not be a closed book but a door waiting to reopen. Somewhere beyond the Pashorn rim, the pulse still throbbed, synchronized now with the artifact's core. Those who monitored it began noticing a change in rhythm. Faster, stronger, deliberate. A signal no longer waiting to be discovered, but calling. The continuum had spent 10,000 years convincing itself humanity was a myth. Now the myth was answering back. The signal arrived without warning, cutting through every frequency, overriding secure channels, private communications, and military encryptions alike. Across the continuum, every device that could process data froze for exactly 3 seconds before displaying a single phrase in an extinct language. The words were simple but carried the weight of prophecy. "We are coming home." For a moment, silence reigned. Then the galaxy erupted into chaos. News grids overloaded with theories and denials. Officials blamed extremists, claiming it was a psychological weapon designed to destabilize the empire. Yet as experts analyzed the waveform, they realized it did not originate within any known network. The signal came from outside the galaxy, from the void between galactic arms where no civilization had ever reached. It repeated every hour, its tone shifting slightly each time, as though whoever sent it was adjusting their focus, like a predator locking onto prey. The High Council convened emergency assemblies across all systems. Military fleets were ordered to the borders, and research institutions were nationalized overnight. But fear is faster than authority. Civilians flooded spaceports, demanding passage to inner worlds. Others formed cults that worshipped the phrase as divine promise. The cult of the returners spread like wildfire, preaching that humanity's arrival would mark the end of the artificial peace the galaxy had hidden behind for millennia. They claimed the signal was not a threat but a summoning, a reminder that the galaxy's complacency was reaching its expiration. On the outer colonies, panic turned into rebellion. Local governors cut ties with the central authority, declaring their independence from the continuum's rule. They argued that the council had known about humanity all along, that the legends of their disappearance were lies to control the populace. The accusation was not far from truth. Evidence leaked from suppressed archives, showing records of old encounters where humans had spared certain species, on the condition they never returned to Earth's sector. The council had built its empire on that silence, pretending the condition never existed. Now that silence was breaking. At the scientific core of Kaidura, linguists translated the transmission fully for the first time. The phrase "we are coming home" contained hidden code embedded in harmonic intervals. When decoded, the harmonics formed coordinates. But the coordinates pointed not toward the Pashorn rim where the first signal was detected. It led inward, toward the galactic core. That region was forbidden space, consumed by black holes and radiation storms, unreachable even for the most advanced vessels. Yet the data was undeniable. The source of the transmission came from the center of everything, from a region where light itself was devoured. Governments fractured under the pressure. Half of the continuum demanded contact, hoping to negotiate before the unknown force arrived. The other half demanded immediate defense initiatives, constructing weapon platforms around key systems despite knowing their technology would likely be meaningless. Simulations from the defense nexus ran thousands of scenarios. Every one ended the same way: extinction within days of contact. The analysts refused to publish the results, but leaks ensured the public knew anyway. Religions that had slept for millennia awoke overnight. Prophets claimed visions of beings made of light walking through burning skies. Some said they saw oceans boiling under the gaze of invisible suns. Others heard whispers in dreams, repeating the same phrase as the signal but softer, almost compassionate: "We are coming home." No one could tell if the voice was comforting or condemning. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the pattern changed. Astronomers monitoring the pulse realized it was no longer a single signal. Thousands of new sources appeared, synchronized across the void, forming a spiral pattern that mirrored the galactic structure. The realization struck everyone at once. The entire galaxy was being mapped, each system pinged and catalogued, like a long-lost memory being retrieved. The signal wasn't just an announcement. It was a scan. Communication grids began collapsing under interference. Artificial intelligences went offline, refusing commands, some speaking strange phrases before shutting down entirely. They are nay. Protocol 7 complete. Prepare for reclamation. Panic deepened. Fleets stationed along the rim reported visual phenomena, light distortions, gravitational fluctuations, and objects appearing briefly before vanishing again. Commanders described them as ships made of light, moving faster than measurable physics allowed. Every sighting was dismissed as hysteria until entire patrols disappeared without distress calls. On Kaidara, the first speaker finally addressed the populace. His message was short, his voice unsteady. He spoke of unity, resilience, and courage, but behind the rehearsed tone lay the unmistakable sound of fear. "Whatever comes," he said, "we will endure." But those who listened closely heard the tremor when he reached the final line of his speech. The transmission feed glitched, and for half a second, another voice spoke through the interference. Calm, human, unmistakably ancient. It said, "Endure? You have forgotten how." Across the continuum, hearts froze. The speech cut to static, and the signal's frequency spiked to a new harmonic range that no alien ear had ever heard before. It was no longer a broadcast, it was a summons. Every ship, every satellite, every communication relay began receiving direct input commands, rewriting their protocols. The pattern formed one final message, translated across all systems simultaneously. It read, Phase 1 complete. Retrieval in progress. The stars themselves seemed to flicker, as though responding to a silent command. And in that flicker, the galaxy understood that humanity's return was not an event to anticipate, it had already begun. The first arrivals were invisible to the naked eye. They came as distortions in gravity, soft tremors across planetary magnetospheres, and faint whispers detected only by deep space observatories. Worlds that tried to analyze the anomalies vanished from sensor networks as if erased from existence. Those who survived long enough to describe the experience spoke of light folding into itself and space bending like liquid. It wasn't a fleet in any conventional sense. It was more like the universe remembering something it had tried to forget. At first, the continuum assumed it was an invasion. Fleets mobilized, weapons armed, defense grids synchronized. Yet when the phenomenon reached the outermost colonies, no attack followed. Instead, something stranger occurred. Machines powered down. Nuclear cores went cold. Energy fields collapsed without damage or explosion. The ships were not destroyed. They were simply rendered inert. Commanders watched helplessly as entire armadas floated dead in space, stripped of power but untouched by force. It was as if reality itself had decided to stop cooperating with their existence. Scientists theorized that whatever humanity had become, it had achieved mastery over physical constants. Energy, gravity, matter, It all obeyed their will. Every attempt to re-establish control failed. Artificial intelligences that had governed star systems for centuries began rebooting themselves, purging code, and broadcasting new directives written in ancient Terran syntax. When decoded, the directives formed a chilling message. Integration protocol initiated. All derivative species will comply. The Continuum realized, far too late, that they were never meant to inherit the stars. They had been caretakers, temporary placeholders in a universe awaiting its original architects. The myths of humanity's extinction were lies built on fear. Humanity had not died. It had evolved beyond material form, transcending biological constraints and ascending into a consciousness that spanned time and space. They had left behind their physical shell not in defeat, but in pursuit of understanding. And now, having completed their journey through the fabric of existence, they had returned to reclaim what was once theirs. Across the galactic core, phenomena multiplied. Stars began pulsing in synchronized rhythms, their light waves forming complex patterns that conveyed language through frequency. The message was simple: the era of inheritance is over. Entire civilizations sent desperate pleas for mercy, but there was no response, only silence and light. One by one, planets lost contact. Sensors recorded brief flashes of brilliant white illumination before systems went dark. When later probes reached those coordinates, they found nothing, no debris, no radiation, not even gravity signatures. The worlds had been rewritten out of existence, or perhaps absorbed into something greater. Meanwhile, a handful of Continuum scholars pieced together what had happened millennia ago. Humanity had once built the first intergalactic network, a lattice of consciousness designed to bind thought across the cosmos. But when alien empires began to rise, humanity withdrew, fearing the misuse of their technology. They sealed themselves away, encoding their essence into quantum substrates beyond conventional perception. The aliens who inherited the ruins of their empire misinterpreted this silence as extinction. But humanity had never disappeared. They had been waiting for equilibrium to fail, for their successes to stagnate under their own complacency. That time had come. As the reclamation expanded, physical resistance became meaningless. No weapon could harm what was no longer bound by matter. Attempts to flee the galaxy failed. Jump drives either malfunctioned or redirected ships back to their point of origin. It was as if the universe itself denied escape. The final broadcasts captured across the Continuum were filled with both terror and awe. They are rewriting physics, one transmission said. The laws are bending. Space doesn't work anymore. Others simply repeated fragments of the ancient phrase that had started it all: we are coming home. But amid the collapse, one message emerged from the chaos, an unauthorized signal transmitted from an unknown relay deep within the void. It was a human voice, warm and unhurried, addressing not with anger but quiet disappointment. You built your worlds on our ashes, it said. You wore our language like a costume, our technology like stolen skin. But you forgot what it meant to be alive. You replaced wonder with obedience, courage with comfort. We gave you time to grow. You chose to hide instead. The voice paused, and for a moment, the signal carried only static. Then came the final line, calm and absolute. Now we'll show you what it means to remember. Moments later, every remaining system began transmitting a unified pulse, identical in pattern to the first signal that had heralded their return. Except this time, it wasn't a warning, it was synchronization. The galaxy's structure itself started to shift, its spiral arms tightening as if drawn inward by invisible threads. Observers on surviving worlds reported skies filled with auroras that sang with harmonic resonance, each note vibrating through matter and mind alike. Consciousness blurred. Individuals began seeing through each other's eyes, hearing voices that were not their own. The boundaries between minds dissolved, merging into a single vast awareness. The Continuum ceased to exist. In its place was something older, colder, and infinitely vast, a civilization reborn not in flesh but in memory and energy. The stars pulsed once more, then steadied. Across the void, A final whisper echoed through what remained of reality, carrying the calm inevitability of truth. Humanity has come home.